across the UK, on DAB digital radio, online and on your smart speaker. This is Times Radio. It starts with listening.
It is 12 o'clock. I'm Hugo Rifkind. This is Times Radio. In a moment, PMQs, but first let's have a look at the headlines this lunchtime. 2 police officers involved in the arrest of Henry Novak as he lay dying are being investigated over potential gross misconduct. The police watchdog says it's possible they breached professional behaviour standards regarding duties and responsibilities and the use of force. They were first on the scene on December the 3rd. The family of a 3-year-old boy who was seriously injured in a crocodile enclosure have thanked staff at the zoo in Cambridgeshire who rescued their son. They say they're truly grateful for the public support and well wishes they've received. The Conservatives say the law must be changed in order to deport a notorious Rochdale grooming gang leader who is being released from prison this week. It has emerged that Shabir Ahmed cannot be deported because of immigration laws dating from the 1970s. And Victor Willis, frontman of the Village People and co-writer of YMCA, has died. He was 74. We will have a full update at 1 o'clock, but now live on the Times Radio and the Times YouTube channels, it's time for this.
PMQs Unpacked on Times Radio. Unpacking the politics and cutting through the crossfire.
And I'm joined as always by Times chief political commentator Patrick Maguire. Hello, Patrick.
Hi, Hugo.
How are you keeping?
I'm all right, thank you.
Quiet week.
Quiet week, a slightly cooler week than last week. Obviously, the football's on later, and then it's the party of a well-known weekly periodical, which I might pop into.
And we're also joined by Alasdair Beckett-King. Hello.
Hello.
According to the Scotsman, you are a singular and truly distinct act, which could mean they hated you.
Yeah, I like to use a quote that is not expressly complimentary, but more descriptive. Yes, I've sprinted up an escalator to be here because my train was delayed. So
you're wearing it well.
If I sound breathy, it's not because I'm excited about PMQs. It's purely a sort of cardiovascular situation.
Don't ruin the magic. Have you been gripped by PMQs of late?
Oh, it's well, what a thrill! What a thrilling ride! Keir Starmer has become finally become the electrifying figure we all knew he could be, as he gradually, I think, fades out like a ghost.
What are your thoughts on the Burnham Revolution?
I'm from the northeast of England, so I regard Manchester as being quite southern and la-di-da.
It's the Midlands, isn't it?
It's basically the south, yes. It's basically Watford.
But I read on your Wikipedia page you were born in Manchester.
I was born in Lancashire, that's true.
Oh, yeah. Lancashire, whereabouts?
Yeah, Lancaster, I think.
Lancaster.
I mean, I was a baby, so I don't really remember.
you
I grew up in the
choose.
northeast. Thank you for doing your research there.
Oh, don't worry.
So look, with all of these things, I'm optimistic, but I actually think he'll probably betray us, and it'll be a disaster. But if I'm wrong, I'd be delighted.
The optimism is shining forth. Look, you can, like a reminder, you can watch along on the Times YouTube channels. Just go to YouTube and search for PMQs Unpacked, and you'll see our glorious faces. Patrick, we think this is probably Keir Starmer's penultimate PMQs because he's away next week at the NATO meeting. Do you think he's building slowly to an amazing finish?
No. The thing is, he clearly...
But in a T-shirt.
Yes, yeah, no. There's an awful lot of people are sort of investigating. I was about to do a less literary reference in the way that Aragorn turns out to be Strider. There's a lot of people hoping that this mysterious figure swoops in and comes over the crest of a hill and rescues us.
I think of myself as a bit of a geek, but you've lost me. Can I be honest? Patrick, explain that one.
I don't know.
Lord of the Rings is a popular series of books.
I thought it was Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
I knew it was Lord of the Rings. It's Aragorn. I just don't remember precisely what happens and who Strider is.
But no, I may have tangled myself up there in a web of my own making.
A bit. Never mind. I was going to say a bit like that giant spider in the Hobbit forest, but then I remembered I didn't remember.
Shelob is the name of that spider.
I was afraid you might say that. Look, I think it is all going to be about defence, isn't it, Patrick? I can't think of anything else it might be about.
I'd be surprised if it wasn't. And 5 billion. It was almost the exact sum they wanted to save by cutting welfare, and Labour MPs didn't let Keir Starmer do it, so I imagine Kemi Badenoch will remind him of that and remind Labour MPs of how much she wants to cut welfare, which is not great for Andy Burnham if you are reminded that the Tories are massive advocates of that.
Presumably, up until John Healey resigned, Keir Starmer would have been a perfectly plausible candidate to be the next Secretary-General of NATO. And now perhaps might not be quite so much.
Yeah, it was striking that... I was speaking to a Labour MP yesterday who was saying, you meet Europeans and they all quite like Keir Starmer and don't really understand what the fuss is about. That's not the same as thinking you should run NATO in its entirety. And the other thing to consider is it's a lot of diplomatic capital for Andy Burnham to, or his Foreign Secretary, to expend in service of Keir Starmer, come what may. Especially if, we've had a dicey couple of years on defence spending. So let's see. It might not be as straightforward an appointment as Keir Starmer thinks.
Well, look, on the subject of basically having to pay, sending something and then somebody else has to pay the postage that you mentioned, Patrick, Nick gets in touch and he says, I once had to pay for a letter with incorrect postage that turned out to be a job rejection letter.
Oh, wow.
Poor Nick.
Poor Nick.
Let's get our first question from Kemi Badenoch.
But seriously, Mr. Speaker, the Chief of Defence Staff made it known that the armed forces needed a minimum of £28 billion more to defend the country. Can the Prime Minister tell us why he thinks half that amount is enough?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud that this Labour government has delivered 2 major funding increases in just 2 years in government. The first, which was funded by overseas aid, took us to £270 billion over the spending review period. Mr. Speaker, that is a record. The Defence Investment Plan gives us capability we need for the future. That sets a new record, Mr. Speaker, of £300 billion over the next 4 years. That will be invested in drones and autonomous weapons, the largest ever investment, strengthening the UK's nuclear capability, upgrading our naval bases in the most significant way for 45 years, and confirming our commitment to the next generation of fighter jets. That is what is needed to keep our country safe.
Alasdair, is 15 billion half of 28 billion?
I am not a mathematician. I didn't realise the question's going to be this difficult. I don't think it is.
No, nor do I, but I'm not an expert either.
Fascinating.
Do write in if you know whether or not 15 is half of 28.
Yeah,
I would love to know. Yeah,
please.
It's more than half. My calculator tells me.
Mind blown.
I wasn't being ironic. I genuinely can't do mental arithmetic. I honestly didn't know that. Fascinating to see a former human rights lawyer boast about all of the autonomous weapons and nuclear weapons. We're going to have we're going to have robots. They won't even have a conscience. They're just going to kill people. This sounds great. I'm surprised that he answered the question at all, with it being basically his last week. I would have just brought in a game like the last week in school.
Put a film on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just watch The Lion King or Beauty and the Beast. That's what I would have done.
He said, can we just have PMQs outside? We'll go and sit in the grass. Surely that's fair. Patrick, there were a lot of billions being thrown around there, and I'm not going to ask you to do all the maths, but look, irrespective of they wanted 28 billion, they got 15 billion, the government has provided 300 billion. When Keir Starmer says we have provided loads more money to defence, is that fundamentally true or not true? Well,
it's all relative, isn't it? And it is true in relative terms. It's also true, by the way, that you could give £1 trillion to the Chief of Defence Staff and he'd probably come back and say,
can't afford the submarine.
Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, this is insulting. It's like bartering with, someone in a market in Istanbul or something, constantly telling you that there's a really special price. But ultimately, it is not it's not 3% of GDP yet, and it's not what the armed forces, even allowing for that sort of slightly profligate reputation of theirs, it's not what they think is necessary. So, yes and no is the answer to your question, Hugo.
I love the thing about the 3% of GDP is I understand the logic of it, but that obviously depends on what GDP is. I sort of think when I was a kid, I wish I'd negotiated my pocket money with being like, never mind the amount it is, I want it to be this percentage of your take-home pay. Thus, I have a stake in the family's
in your
fortunes.
Success. Yeah.
The family's fortunes going forward. Yeah, I think that would have been very wise. Let's get question 2.
No. Mr. Speaker, he didn't say that it was enough, and that was a very long list of things that he's not yet paying for. It is not right and it is not fair, certainly not to our troops who put their lives on the line for all of us every single day. 3 weeks ago, Mr. Speaker, the Defence Secretary resigned, saying, I am being forced to make decisions that would increase the risk to personnel on operations and could make the country less safe. Since that letter, the Prime Minister has only increased spending by 0.01%. We can count, the generals can count, the Kremlin can count. His plan doesn't add up. How can the Prime Minister possibly stand there and say that this is enough?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this is the most significant upgrade in defence spending since the 1980s. The Chief of Defence Staff has been clear that the plan accelerates the transformation we need for our armed forces. The First Sea Lord, it funds the capability we need to fight and win. The Chief Air Staff strengthens our contribution to NATO, and she must have missed that yesterday the Secretary-General of NATO welcomed the plan. All people who know what's in the plan and welcome it. Contrast that, Mr Speaker, with their record in government, because they hollowed out the armed forces. Their record is cutting defence spending. My record is raising it to £300 billion and rising. Their record is cutting frigates by a quarter, cutting mine hunters by a half, and leaving 47 of 49 defence programmes delayed or over budget. My record is the biggest boost to defence investment since the 1980s. Their record is missing army recruitment targets every year for 14 years. We've given our armed force the biggest pay rise for 20 years and increased defence funding by £15 billion a year. That's a record I'm proud to stand on.
Alasdair, if you had to cut a frigate by a quarter, which bit would you chop off?
I'd go for the top. You do not want to start at the bottom when you're chopping frigates.
Mm-hmm. No, not one of the ends?
No,
Make
just
it
those...
snub-nosed. It wouldn't be able to go forwards, of course. But
one of those bits where the bit where the noise comes out of.
You don't need that.
You don't really need it. It's more for show. The sailors will be sad, but you can get rid of it.
They'll just have to deal with it.
It's good to have an expert here with us in the studio. This is the old dance, Patrick. This is like this all goes back to when you were in government.
Of course. And I imagine we'll have 4 more rounds of this because they're both right. Is the fundamental problem with trying to pick a winner here with the great industrial strategy of PMQs Unpacked? They're both right. You know, it is not enough, according to the military, the amount Keir Starmer has served up. But Keir Starmer is right that he is trying to ramp up funding after many years of underfunding or less generous funding, right? So it's a tough one to call. That's an even tough one to listen to, frankly.
Do you ever hear people saying, even if kind of sort of quietly and off the record, let's never do this again, right? Because basically what happened...
fund the military?
Well, not fund the military. As in, because what happened is we had decades of a peace dividend, right? We had decades where we thought there might be wars, but they're going to be little wars with countries that we don't really need to worry about. Them in places like Afghanistan and Iraq, where we go to war essentially as a hobby. And the idea of there being an existential conflict with a proper... big military was just completely...
the idea, if you'd said to people 5 years ago, I can't remember which minister said this, I think it might have been Tobias Elwell was in front of a committee a couple of years ago and was talking about the need to prepare for a land war in Europe, and I think people just laughed openly at him, right? So... But the problem was at the time that felt like to lots of politicians like special pleading from the military who wanted big procurement projects to justify their own existence, right? Who wanted to buy, tanks and that sort of thing. But the thing you do hear is let's never do this again. There's a sort of broad acceptance now of the principle that we have to pay more for defence. Just don't ask how or what the trade-off there is. Can we do some war bonds and borrow more money, please? Is at the medium view in the Labour Party for those who are thinking about it. What you do sort of hear off the record and quietly is, maybe Trump had a point when he first started talking about how other NATO allies weren't spending enough. I mean, that sounded like a get-out-of-jail-free card for him. But actually, maybe if we'd listened to him, in his first term and started ramping up our spending then, maybe we wouldn't be in such a pickle right now.
Except we did listen a bit to him then. I mean, we did. People. That is sort of when this sort of started.
When the penny started to drop.
Yeah, I guess so. Let's get question 3.
Mr. Speaker, the Chief of Defence Staff is an honourable man, and what he and the NATO Secretary-General have done is welcome the fact that a plan has been published. Just that it's been published. They've been waiting for over a year. Strategic Defence Review was last year. He is an honourable man, Mr. Speaker, who is having to make do with very little. The threat level has dramatically changed in the 2 years that the Prime Minister has been in office. Poland Poland, since the Prime Minister took office, Poland has increased their funding to 4.8%. Germany has increased theirs to 3.7%. This year, Russia will spend 10% of GDP on defence. Meanwhile, Britain is spending it all on welfare. Even the limited plan that he has announced has completely unravelled because he hasn't found the money to pay for it. It is £5 billion short. We all know that he is leaving this mess to his successor, so can he confirm that the member for Makerfield has agreed to fund the shortfall?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what they did was to cut defence spending. When they came into power, defence spending was 2.5%. What did they do? They cut it to 2.3%, a cut. And on welfare, what did they do? They put it up by £88 billion. So we'll take no lectures from them about either welfare or defence. This is £15 billion of new investment for defence, delivered outside of a budget, outside of a spending review. Mr. Speaker, that's about £1 billion a year over 4 years. Because of the decisions at the last budget, we've got headroom of £22 billion. That is precisely so we can take decisions like this. We delivered it outside a budget, outside a spending review. Just like we did with the special educational needs, outside a budget, outside a spending review. Just like the previous government did, Mr. Speaker, when they announced their 5-year NHS plan in 2018, outside a budget, outside a spending review. And what did they say when they were challenged about it, Mr. Speaker? I'll quote, "We will be able to explain exactly where every penny is coming from, but we will do that in the budget." That was the former Health Secretary, then the Chancellor. When they published their Integrated Defence Review in 2020, what did they do? They set out the funding at the next spending review. So let's drop the faux outrage, focus on what matters, the biggest sustained increase for 40 years, the biggest increase for 45 years, providing what is needed to keep the country safe.
Yeah, he'd obviously done a lot of work on that, Patrick, and he sort of lost me.
Well, the key number there was 22 billion. Sorry to introduce another billion number into this conversation. Basically, he's saying, because me and Rachel managed the economy so prudently...
Rachel and I.
Rachel and I.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was saying Keir Starmer was down with the kids, right?
Fair enough, yep.
It's actually whom, but carry on.
Rachel and whom managed the economy so well that there's 22 billion quid in the rainy day fund. Andy Burnham can use that. Now, that sort of implies, by the way, that Andy Burnham... He's sort of implying there, like, Andy knows there's 22 billion quid in headroom he can raise. That's the whole point of the headroom. It gives you breathing space. You know, it means that if you have an unexpected... It's the political equivalent of your boiler breaking, isn't it, or something like that, or having to get a new engine for your car or something. So that was the most significant line in that politically.
Alasdair, your views?
Well, it feels quite familiar from PMQs because, like you say, Patrick, it's the kind of dance that we've seen before, because Kemi has distanced herself to some extent from the Tory party that Starmer is criticising, and Starmer's big projects are all sort of things that are going to happen, are going to be absolutely fabulous. You're going to feel much better off down the line. This is going to make us much more secure, and so they're slightly talking past each other. But with obviously, as a sort of Marxist, socialist, lefty, liberal anarchist, I'm not a fan of Kemi Badenoch. But she has this unshakable confidence that I don't know where it comes from. I keep thinking about, when Hans Gruber gets pushed out of the building and you see his realisation in his face. Yep. We've got two people who would not react at all.
Just for listeners, Die Hard reference.
In Die Hard, in niche art house film Die Hard. There's a moment of realisation, but I feel like you could push either Keir Starmer or Kemi Badenoch out of a building and they wouldn't notice. There'd be no sense in her face that she realises that the Tories are tanking. You would never know it from her performance. And with Starmer, it's like, does he know he's going? Does he know that this is it for him? I find it fascinating that they're sort of talking past each other with this unshakable confidence.
It was weird when he did the Defence Investment Plan yesterday. He didn't mention at any point that he wasn't long for the world.
Yeah, and it's interesting, sort of, you get a press release for two speeches this week, right? I was in Manchester for the Andy Burnham speech, then Keir Starmer gives a speech on Tuesday. You wouldn't know that the actual Prime Minister, the serving Prime Minister, had given a speech on Tuesday morning. And obviously, it's now become a massive row, but why are we talking about it? Because it's a big problem for Andy Burnham. We're not actually seriously running the rule that closely over what Keir Starmer has done, it matters only insofar as Andy Burnham will have to answer a question. That's the nature of power draining away, though, in our system very, very quickly. The only person that matters to Westminster is one Andrew Murray Burnham.
Well, look, some people have got in touch on YouTube. Some in the comments say, Matthew says, nice tie, Patrick.
Thank you very much.
What's on it today?
It is, I think this is Ralph Lauren. I got it from a second-hand shop in Montreal.
OK, good. Jeff says this is a phony war with a phony Prime Minister. Thanks, Jeff. And Elizabeth says, I'm not worried about the defence budget shortfall. The budget available is adequate to protect the Manchester City region. Thank you, Elizabeth. Let's get question 4.
Mr. Speaker, he says that he's delivering this outside the budget. That's right, it should have been in the last budget. The Strategic Defence Review was published last year. It should have been in the last budget, not the next budget. The intelligence assessment that he himself has said we have says there could be an attack on NATO by 2030. But this plan doesn't deliver until after that. £5 billion is missing from his plan. It also relies on £11 billion of unidentified savings. The plan has unravelled. It is a total dereliction of duty, and I'm not the only one who thinks so. The Times newspaper said today the Prime Minister's legacy... well, why don't we wait and see what they said? That the Prime Minister's legacy is betrayal, failure and vulnerability, and that's one of the nicer headlines. So I will ask again, because he didn't answer the question, Mr. Speaker, did the member for Makerfield know that he was going to have to find £5 billion for the Prime Minister's plan?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when I became Prime Minister 2 years ago, this country spent £54 billion a year on defence. Because of the decisions we've taken, that will rise to £80 billion a year by 2029. That is a real terms increase of 27%, transforming our armed forces. And we're not going to take any lectures from the party opposite. They cut defence spending. They hollowed out the armed forces. That's what their Defence Secretary admitted that's what they did. They don't like it. They won't defend their record, Mr. Speaker, because they can't. They won't apologise for it, because they have to admit what we all know, it's a total failure. They just try to pretend the 14 years they were in power never really happened. We're in power, we're recording investment in defence and security. I'm proud of this Labour government, and any Labour Prime Minister would stand behind this plan.
Patrick, nice shout out there for a Times leader this morning.
Indeed.
Yeah. I mean, there's a bit of jeering at the mention of the Times in the Commons, which I think we should probably dig into.
I think that was from the Prime Minister, probably.
That leader in the Times, I don't know if you read it, Alasdair, but it begins by talking about Britain's zombie Prime Minister, and I feel you're just the man to talk about what it would be like if we actually had a zombie Prime Minister.
Thank you. I appreciate the way you give me all the serious questions.
You know, it's important.
Yeah, well, obviously you will want to get a shotgun and lean a chair against a door.
Yeah, no, that would be vital. Look, I mean, there's not. Fine. Here's a serious question. There's not very much he can say, is there? She's hitting him again and again with the fact that there's not enough money, and it is true that there's not enough money.
No, and he's giving the same answer, which is that for 14 years the Tories, for the 14 years the Tories for 14 years, the 14 years the benches opposite, the 14 years the Tories, and which is a great point because it was a horrible 14 years in my opinion. But it does feel like we're hearing the same little rehearsed bit come out again, trotted out again and again, and it's fascinating to me that. The way he finished by sort of saying any Labour leader, like it could be anyone. He's leaving it open at the end. Any Labour leader would be thrilled to be stepping into my shoes. I'd be interested to see if that turns out to be the case.
Let's get question 5.
It doesn't sound like he's told the member for Makerfield to find £5 billion. He says any Labour Prime Minister would stand behind this plan. Let me tell him what Lord Richard Dannett, the former head of the Army, said yesterday. He said the Prime Minister had chosen the cheap option and called the plan woefully inadequate. Let me tell him what General Sir Richard Barrons, one of the authors of his own Strategic Defence Review, said yesterday. We are simply not going to be ready to defend this country properly. That's what they're saying. The reason that he is in this mess is because he was too weak to cut welfare when he had the chance. There are only 3 ways, Mr. Speaker, to find the missing £5 billion. Increase borrowing, increase taxes, or cut welfare. Which one will he recommend to the member for Makerfield?
Mr. Speaker, we're talking about £1 billion a year over 4 years. The decisions at the last budget gave us more than £22 billion in headroom, so we can take the decisions that they don't understand this because they trashed the old. We built a headroom of £22 billion. The very reason for the headroom is to have the credibility to take decisions outside the budget and outside the spending review. They don't understand it because they lost control of the public finances. In addition to more on defence and security, we've taken control of the public finances. That's why you have headroom to take credible decisions like this. £1 billion a year over 4 years, headroom of £22 billion because of the decisions we took at the last budget, which allow us to take these decisions.
Run us through the headroom again one more time, Patrick. Is there really just £22 billion down the back of the sofa that they're going, well, this will be useful for a rainy day? I mean, if there is, why not just spend it on bloody defence?
Well, that's what he's proposing to do. That's what he's saying. You know, any Labour Prime Minister would stand behind this plan, i.e., saying that $1 billion a year.
But I'm sorry, but I'm not holding you accountable for this. But how do you lose your defence minister over a few £1 billion when you've got a few £1 billion down the back of the sofa anyway, and you could just go, we'll have these.
Well,
ones.
it's a really good question, and I'll be candid with you. I don't know the answer. The point of the headroom, though, is to preserve it, because you don't want to be spending it, right? Because
you fill up your headroom, you bump your head.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
But things might change. Strait Hormuz, economic shocks. It's like it's a shock absorber. It's an airbag. That's the point of it. Is so you can say to the markets, our friends in the markets, don't worry, we're not going to go broke if something bad happens, because I've got I've built up this £22 billion buffer. But Keir Starmer is basically saying, put the holiday on the credit card. Not the credit card, dip into the Help to Buy ISA, and he's too old to Help to Buy ISA.
It's the kids' college fund, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Alasdair, look, you're a man of the left. There is a sort of oft-repeated theory, to the extent that it's sort of become a bit of a truism, that where it all started to go wrong for Keir Starmer was that he couldn't get his backbenchers to fall into line to support him in cutting benefits, and that's why there hasn't been enough money for anything, including defence. I feel you won't agree with that, but I want to know why you don't agree with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people over the last few weeks have been baffled as to what's gone wrong with Starmer's leadership, and without being an expert, I think it's probably got something to do with everybody hating him.
Yeah, sure.
But it's one of those things where, I don't like him, but I don't like him for a different reason to why you don't like him.
You're right,
listeners to Time Radio.
Yeah.
I don't like him for left-wing reasons.
Right.
I don't like him for the reason that the Reform voters don't like him. I think. I mean, from my point of view, obviously, I think. Telling all left-wing people to stop voting Labour was a strategic error. It seemed like a real power move at the time, and it worked. I mean, we all left the party, but I do think it's left him on shakier ground, and I do think the traditional Labour and the Labour left are more reflected in the backbenches, and. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm against cutting welfare. I'm for good things and against bad things. Not to be too nuanced and political about this. I don't know. I'm like you. I'm to a greater extent than you. I'm significantly baffled by the headroom comment. I've never sympathised with Kerry Badenoch before. When he says the people opposite don't understand, I'm like, me neither. Actually,
that gang.
This is what it feels like to be in the Tory shadow cabinet, confused.
Yeah. Let's get question 6.
Mr. Speaker, we understand it perfectly, and that's why, yes we do, that's why he is leaving, and so is his Chancellor. They're laughing and pretending, but if he was doing such a fabulous job, why did he resign? Mr. Speaker, defence of the realm is the first duty of government. Yes, it is the first duty of government. I don't need to read again what General Sir Richard Barrons or Lord Richard Dannett said. Maybe they didn't hear it the first time. They can re-watch the clips. But defence of the realm, Mr. Speaker, is the first duty of government. Britain is facing a moment of danger unlike anything in our lifetimes, unlike anything that we saw even in government. We need a plan to fund our armed forces that meets this moment. They are the government for now, not for 10 years ago. And the fact is, Labour's plan is too weak, it is too little, and it is too late. If his successor doesn't want to be complicit in this failure, he should come out and condemn this plan. The money must be found, Mr. Speaker, and that money should come from cutting welfare, something these Labour MPs will not do. And if the Labour Party cannot defend our country, Mr. Speaker, what is the point of them?
It's just all talk. What did they actually do? They cut defence 2.5% down to 2.3% in their 14 long years. And what did on welfare? They put the bill up by £88 billion. So no lectures from them. They failed in the first duty of government. And they won't defend their record, will they? They won't stand here and defend it because they know that never do they stand here and defend their record because they can't. 14 years of failure. They don't get up and apologise, which is what they should do, because they would admit what we all know how much they failed. So they just sit there pretending it didn't happen. Well, it did happen. You hollowed out the armed forces. We're correcting you. And I tell you what else, when we came into power, public services were on their knees. Today, we've seen the fastest fall in NHS waiting lists for 17 years. When I became Prime Minister, we inherited a broken economy. Today, we're outperforming the other G7 economies. When I became Prime Minister, our international alliances have been shredded. Now other countries are looking to us to lead on defence and security. Foundations of a stronger and fairer country. Britain in a better state than we found it. That's the difference a Labour government makes.
How strange that he's going when it all went so well. Alasdair, putting the substance to one side, in the past, when we've seen Prime Ministers on the way out, you get a sense of a kind of, what's the word, bonhomie. You know what I mean? You get a kind of like, well, we've faced each other across this place. It's been hard. We've fought hard. But really, there's a grudging respect here.
Yeah.
None of that from these two.
No, you get a sense that Starmer sort of should have someone holding him back outside the front of a pub. He's surprisingly bullish about this.
Like Tony Blair on that Christmas card. You know the one.
Yes, I do know the one.
Yeah.
Yes, you just started a fight with Tony Blair, and sure he's holding him back.
Yeah.
Fascinating to hear Kemi Badenoch defend the Tory record for, I think, the first time I've heard her do that in PMQs. Even I think accidentally, perhaps in passing, sort of saying, well, we weren't doing all war stuff then, so it was fine to not spend anything on defence. He perhaps has a very tiny victory for Starmer that he forced her into saying, yeah, but no, it was a good idea.
Yes, I am a Conservative, fine.
But, yeah, all right, that was us. But now it's a bad idea now because you're Prime Minister.
Do you think, Patrick, just before we move on from this, next time that these two face each other, which of course won't be next week, that we expect that'll be David Lammy because Starmer's away next week. Last time, do you think they might be a bit different? Bit of laughs.
There'll be a sort of like, we've had our differences, but you're all right, really.
Yeah, maybe I've prepared a song.
And they'll be like, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. Ha ha ha! Here's a joke. And I'm looking forward to many more meetings at the Pineapple in Kentish Town. Ha ha! Yeah, like that sort of thing.
I'm not seeing it. You know, so Joe gets in touch just before we move on from this. Joe says Starmer sounding more like Rick from The Young Ones than ever there. I actually thought he was. I had a flash of that too. Anyone else get that? No? Looking at me blankly. No,
I'm very aware of the People's Poet, but I didn't see much of it in
I thought there was a real bit of it there. No matter. Look, stick with us. Up next, we're going to be joined by Stefan Boscher, who's going to bring us the best of the backbenchers. This is Hugo Rifkind here on Times Radio.
across the UK on DAB digital radio, on the free Times Radio app, and via your smart speaker. Hugo Rifkind on Times Radio.
Hello, Hugo Rifkind here on Times Radio. We are currently unpacking Prime Minister's questions in the company of Alasdair Beckett-King, Patrick Maguire, and now with the Times Politics newsletter editor, Stefan Boscher. Hello, Stefan.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I just need to play this. I need to play this. Oh dear.
Now, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. What did Ed Davies say?
Hey, we didn't play
pretty
Richard
good.
Bacon at the top of the show.
Yeah, maybe we're phasing that out.
No!
Maybe we forgot. We'll play it later, I promise. So we've got a first question from the backbenchers. I assume it's from Ed Davey, otherwise that was all for nothing.
You are in luck. It is.
Oh,
it is his second question.
This radio can be a minefield. Let's hear it.
I thought it was the first question.
It's his... It's
Percent.
For me.
We're going to try and get Ed Davies' question. I think we've got it. Let's see. Ed Davies' second question. Do we have it or do we not have it? This is all going very well, this segment. We'll have it in just a moment.
Lee Anderson's wearing a white tie with a white shirt. Isn't that interesting?
Thank God you're here. I'll be talking
very
absolute
Al Capone
nonsense.
sort of look, isn't that, from Lee Anderson?
Maybe it's maybe he's bleached it by mistake. I don't know. Let's get Ed Davies' second question.
That he's had advice from his own team that he should adopt them, and I hope the Right Honourable Member for Makerfield will listen. But, Mr. Speaker, I have another concern that I think the Prime Minister will share. The rising tide of racist violence and hate that we're seeing in our country, and the way it's being incited and normalised, including, I'm afraid, by some members of this House. I was talking to a British friend of Indian ancestry who told me how reform activists came to her door and said that if they get into power, she and her family will have their passports seized and their citizenship revoked. Does the Prime Minister agree that racism has no place in our country? And will he join me in condemning anyone who is stoking it?
Can I thank him for raising this? It is really important because our politics is becoming more diverse and racism and intolerance is permeating everywhere. And we have to deal with it because it's tearing our societies apart. It is keeping good people away from politics because they don't want to be involved in it. And it should be called out by every single person who's a politician at any level in this country. But, Mr. Speaker, I say this looking at the plaque to Joe Cox, and of course we've got David Amos behind me too. We had a Joe Cox 10-year reminder that it was 10 years ago, just a week or so ago, that we lost Jo, and I had a reception in Downing Street with her parents and other close friends and relatives of hers. We read out the words of Jo again. The very sad thing is I was not able to say that in the 10 years since Jo's death things have got better, because sadly they've got worse. That's on us to fix, all of us to fix, every single member of this House, whatever their party in, and anybody who flames it should be absolutely ashamed of themselves.
Stefan, that's Ed Davies' attack on reform. He's only talking about reform, isn't he? When he says some members of this House.
I think it's pretty clear that he was staring into their corner of the chamber at that point where they sit. He's been talking about this for a number of weeks, and obviously the instance that Ed Davey mentioned himself was about reform members allegedly saying awful things to a group of Indians on the doorstep, and obviously that's an isolated case and a terrible thing, and I have no doubt that Nigel Farage would denounce that. But I think that this is an attack which we were again and again. I'm not sure if the race one is really one that's doing well for Labour and the Lib Dems. I think it seems that it didn't really affect them in the May local elections when they went really hard on this. But we are seeing reform somewhat dip in popularity. It may have more to do with the fact that some of the attacks on, for instance, Farage taking lots of money from gold firms and crypto barons, that actually is probably more of a better line of attack, really.
Alasdair, we like balance on this show, so I'd like you to give us a defence of, let me check, the rising tide of racist violence and hate, please.
Yeah, well, it's obviously it's fantastic news for bigotry. We are living in a golden age of racism, and at Times Radio, I'm sure we all celebrate that. I think, it's hard to imagine what would attract dyed-in-the-wool racists to the Reform Party. I just don't know what they're thinking there. Fascinating to see Keir Starmer say there's absolutely no place for this sort of thing in politics in a week week where Shabana Mahmood keeps announcing increasingly insane policies around refugees in the vain hope that people who vote Reform are going to go, no, actually, I will vote for the Labour Party after all. There's stoking and there's stoking. You know, as you rightly say, Farage would disavow racism if asked. But I don't think that means that that these sort of policies about refugees and the policies on immigration don't have a racist element to them.
I appreciate the effort, but you failed in your brief there. That didn't sound like a defence of racism at all. Patrick,
I apologise.
Your turn.
Oh, what, you're asking me to do a defence of racism?
Do what you like. What do you think of Davy's question? Because I mean, like, he obviously doesn't. Obviously, they don't actually line these things up in advance. But Keir Starmer wants him to ask that question. It's there's a lot of cooperation there.
Yeah, look, it's you have there in microcosm how Labour and the Lib Dems hope the next election will go. That you'll have two leaders saying broadly similar things about reform, and that, you know, progressive voters will vote efficiently based on where they are in the country to lock reform out, and there'll be more consensus on that message, at least, i.e. stopping reform, than there is on the right of politics between the Tories and reform and what they want. But yeah, look, and I'm sure we will get an angry and forthright denial that any reform activists would ever do that from Nigel Farage in a strongly worded and viral social media clip. And Ed Davey will clip that up. So both sides of the political debate on this one will get exactly what they want. Farage will get to say, this is what the establishment parties think of you for having legitimate concerns about migration. This never happened. Ed Davey will say, you know, reform are all awful. And
win-win.
You know, the polarisation that Andy Burnham warns us about will continue.
Win-win, except for everybody. Stefan, next up you've got, I believe, my local MP.
Indeed, Catherine West, the North London MP for Hornsey and Wood Green.
Nice, well done, smart. Let's see what she said.
Could I thank the Prime Minister for his calm and authoritative leadership in international affairs, and could I also thank the UK missions abroad who have enormous respect for him. And could I also ask him to put on record his thanks to the security, diplomatic and international aid workforce who work day and night on behalf of the UK abroad. And closer to home, Mr. Speaker, could I also, as a fellow North Londoner, say, despite the heat waves, North London forever, regardless of the weather.
Prime Minister. Well, I think she's someone who always speaks her mind. And I join her in thanking our people. I'm proud that during my tenure we've delivered 5 major trade deals. We've led the coalition of the willing to support Ukraine and strengthened the NATO alliance, built stronger partnerships with the EU and kept us out of the war in Iran. And can I thank her for her contribution that she made as Foreign Office Minister.
Stefan, could I thank the Prime Minister who I killed for his calm and authoritative leadership, please?
Fantastic passive aggressiveness from both sides there. And the fact she didn't even make a joke about it, I think it was quite poor. And you know, also the fact that she was almost quite obsequious at the end, doing the Arsenal reference to the song "The Angel," which has become an anthem for Arsenal to play the start of games. You know, I saw just now someone say that she has more faces than a dice, and I think it's quite poor. I think Starmer handled it pretty well. At least he made a joke of it, but I think she should have shown a bit of self-consciousness, or at least had a bit of a laugh about it.
She's mad. I love her.
She is.
She is. What a woman. You know, like, let's just sketch out the last couple of months in Catherine West's life.
Right.
Comes out of nowhere, says she's going to challenge the Prime Minister.
Comes out of Hornsey and Wood Green. What do you mean comes out of nowhere?
Comes out of Colac in Australia, actually. I think.
Well, exactly.
I digress.
Right, so she comes over here, sets up shop in Hornsey, Wood Green, and/or I think after boundary changes.
Comes over here, taking our votes.
Frying bonnet, taking our leadership challenges, taking our stuff. Back in my day, we had proper British stalking horses, not these Australians coming over here and stalking our horses.
Go on.
And then, you know, she goes on the radio on a Saturday afternoon and says, I'm going to challenge the Prime Minister. Then she changed it to sort of like, I'm going to WhatsApp everyone and you can like reply yes to oust the Prime Minister. Then events overtake her, but she never formally drops a leadership challenge. At another point, she goes on the radio and says, actually, Keir Starmer's a great guy and I've not decided, you know, if there is a leadership race,
I might vote for him.
He should definitely stand and I might vote for him. And now she's up there saying, what a man, I'll miss you so much. You're a titan on the international stage. You know, I love Catherine West. Thank you so much. She's done more for this country than any Australian since Stefan Boscher or Barry Humphries.
High praise indeed.
Patrick Maguire, thank you very much indeed for being with us. Stefan Boscher will be in your inbox in a couple of hours with the PMQs Unpacked roundup. Alasdair is sticking with me for a moment. Just to remind you, Times subscribers can sign up to that newsletter at thetimes.com/newsletters if they don't already, but of course they should. This is Hugo Rifkind here on Times Radio.